quiet ones, the ones nobody sees, that reshape everything. There's a kind of silence that feels uncomfortable at first. The kind where your phone isn't buzzing, nobody's calling your name, and there's no distraction to hide behind. Inceptive moments nobody sees, just opaks. Just you and your thoughts. And if you're honest, that's the moment most people run from. Because silence doesn't just sit there politely, it speaks. It reminds you of the things you've been avoiding, the dreams you've delayed, the words you never said, the version of yourself you keep promising to become one day. And in a world that constantly tells you to be louder, faster, more visible, silence feels like falling behind, but what if it's not? What if silence is where everything actually begins? Think about it. Before every decision, there's a pause. Before every breakthrough, there's a moment where nothing seems to be happening. Before a person changes their life, there's usually a stretch of quiet where they're just thinking, not performing, not proving, just facing themselves. And that's where it gets real. Because when it's quiet, there's no audience, no validation, no applause. It's just you asking yourself questions you can't ignore anymore. Am I happy with where I am? Is this really what I want? Why do I keep settling for less than I know I'm capable of? Silence doesn't let you escape those questions. It makes you sit with them. And yeah, that can feel heavy. It can feel uncomfortable, even painful. But that discomfort, that's not something to run from. That's a signal. It means you're waking up. Most people spend their lives filling every second with noise, music in their ears, scrolling through endless content, conversations that don't really say anything. Not because they love the noise, but because they're afraid of what they'll hear when it stops. Because silence has a way of stripping everything down to the truth. It shows you who you are without distractions. It shows you your habits, your fears, your excuses. It shows you the gap between who you are and who you could be. And that gap, that's where growth lives. But only if you're willing to stay in the silence long enough to see it clearly. There's a moment, usually late at night or early in the morning, when everything slows down. No notifications, no expectations, just stillness. And in that stillness, something inside you starts to speak. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just a quiet voice saying you can do more. And most people ignore it. They brush it off. They tell themselves they're tired, or it's not the right time, or they'll think about it later. But that voice doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from the part of you that knows exactly what you're capable of. And silence is the only place where you can hear it. The truth is, growth isn't always loud. It doesn't always look like big moves or public wins. Sometimes it looks like sitting alone, facing your thoughts, and deciding quietly that you're not going to stay the same. No announcement, no audience, just a decision. And those quiet decisions, they change everything. They're the reason someone wakes up earlier the next day, the reason they start working on something they've been putting off, the reason they walk away from what no longer feels right, not because someone told them to, but because in the silence, they finally listen to themselves. There's power in that, real power. Because when you learn to be okay with silence, you stop depending on the outside world to tell you who you are. You stop chasing constant validation. You stop needing noise to feel alive. You become grounded. You start to understand your own mind, your own patterns, your own potential. And once you see that clearly, it's hard to go back to living on autopilot. Silence also teaches you patience. It reminds you that not everything needs an immediate answer, that it's okay to sit with uncertainty for a while. That clarity often comes not from forcing it, but from allowing it. And in that space, something shifts. You stop reacting to everything. You start responding with intention. You stop rushing through life. You start actually experiencing it. You stop trying to be everywhere at once. You start being fully present where you are. And that presence, that's where peace lives. Not in the noise, not in the chaos. Stop, but in the quiet moments where you're fully connected to yourself. So maybe silence isn't something to fear. Maybe it's something to protect. Because in a world that never stops talking, choosing silence is an act of strength. It's a way of saying, I don't need all that noise to know who I am. And the more you embrace it, the more you realize something surprising. You were never empty in those quiet moments. You were just finally listening to your truth, your instincts, your direction.